because I don't know why I read it as 12 p.m. and understand a lot of us are not just learners through hearing, but we would like to see. And there are some kinesthetic learners as well who learn by doing. But unfortunately, in the COVID situation now, all we have is this medium of virtual where audio visually we tend to learn, right? So I don't have to go through this slide. I think this introduction was well covered, so I'll skip that. And because I belong to an organization, primarily here I am trying to share my personal views. So I am not trying to represent my organization here, though I have listed Capgemini in my presentation because I also do some of these sessions for through our CSR areas, the corporate social responsibility. So what are we going to do? Right. So we are going to see why we communicate. And I understand the demographics, the people who are on the call are from various backgrounds. There are some freshers, there are some guys who have some experience, right? But in any virtual session, I think it helps us to know what is it that we are going to cover. So I've just put together a little structure, and don't worry, there is not too much of text. I have tried to back it up with some pictures as well. All right, so just imagine you are in a situation like this, where you are lost in an island, you are alone on your boat, and you are lost in an island, right? So unless you do something like this, wherein you use the pebbles and try and show to somebody who's going over the sky, you will be completely lost. So basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to inform whoever that you need some help, right? Second, in this picture, as you can see, this chap is trying to influence the buyer. A customer has come in and the salesperson is communicating with the customer in order to sell something, right? So in order for the customer to buy, this person should be in a position to influence the person. And if you have to think about the famous personality in this picture, APJ Abdul Kalam. So just imagine if he was coming to your school or your college, then he will communicate to inspire you, right? So basically what I'm trying to tell you is whatever we heard about communication skills, I think majority of them feel that it's all about the written and how well you speak. But if you go a little deeper, then you will realize that it's not just that, but it is to do with what is it that you want the other person to do? What is it that the message that you are trying to pass on? Because you want to get some work done. And we will see in subsequent slides what are the different opportunities where the communication skills come handy. And definitely, we are living in a digital age. And I think all of you will appreciate that we are communicating a lot more than in our entire history. And thanks to the digital world that we live in, there's no more analog communication that is happening. And if you are working in the organization, then you will realize the focus that the organization has on digitizing it. And we all are in a global village now with interconnections across different geographies, and social media has simply amplified it, right? So what happens when we are living in a digital age where communication is from all corners? You know, it looks like this. So when you are in front of your screen, be it your phone or laptop or tab, whatever, there is so much of information that is coming your way. And we human beings can process certain things. Our information processing capability is pretty less, right? So the challenges that we face with this is our distractions are high. Now I can bet whoever is on the call, if you got a beep on your cell phone, you will completely lose what we are discussing and your concentration goes on that, right? The notifications are a biggest problem that I see. And on my phone, I don't have any notifications. And our impatience is going up because we want information right at a click, because Google, I think, has given that flexibility, that empowerment, and just like that, information is available. We want things to happen quickly. And if you are talking to some of the leaders who want you to hit the bottom line, they don't want to listen to the entire story, but they want you to tell them what exactly you are trying to convey. And our attention spans are reducing again, because if I bring in my psychology studies, there is a concept called novelty recognition. So basically, if we do a lot of shopping, if we want a lot of new things, that's primarily because we like new stuff. And in the information age, the digital age that we are living in, there is so much that is available that you will not stick on to one thing for a very long time. And I don't know if you have realized, just try and read some blogs. And the blog will mention 5-minute read, 3-minute read, 7-minute read, like that. And chances of you reading a 2-minute read are higher than a pretty lengthy one. So I'm trying to bring this to your attention so that you know, when you communicate, what are some of the things that you need to take care of. Too many communication channels. Yes, I mean, in the organization itself, just imagine a couple of years back when we had only email exchanges or the desk phone, but now you have collaborative tools, you have Skype, you have Microsoft Teams, you have whatnot. So communication channels are high. So you need to know which communication channel you need to use, which is effective in that particular scenario. So just to give you an example, I tell my team members that if there is something which is not urgent, send them an email. But you need an answer, ping them. And if you're not getting a response, call them. But don't just go on sending reminder over reminder on an email. And quality of communication is low. Again, here, what I'm trying to say is people are using the shortcuts or trying to convey things in emojis. I think the era that we are living in, everything is hashtag or shorter words. And if you go back to, I don't know the age of the participants here, but when I was in school or colleges, we used to write lengthy letters or applications, handwritten or typewritten and all that. But these days, as you can see, because of all the distraction, attention spans and all, our quality of communication is also going low. So what is the typical elements in a communication? And again, I don't know the educational qualification or the backgrounds or the streams that you guys come from, but some of you who might have been exposed to the communication in a technical language, you would understand that that is how it looks like. But in a software aspect as well, the same method kinds of follow, where you have a sender and a receiver. And what happens in between is shown here, where the sender encodes and the receiver decodes. And the message that you pass on is through the media, which we have just spoken. There are different channels through which you can pass on the message. And the thing that you need to take care is of the noise in between, which is sometimes in a form of an interruption or some non-value added words. Here is an example which I have given. The one that is highlighted in red is absolutely non-value add. You don't have to say that, because obviously somebody is going to a sweet shop to purchase sweets, right? So the crux is in any communication, which is typically understood as a soft skill, communication skill, is whatever the sender is trying to say. I think someone has to go on mute. Thank you.
Yes,
So,
they are on mute.
thank you. Mohammad Naushad, I see the name here. I don't know if you have an opportunity to mute the participants. Yeah, okay.
Yes, it's done.
All right. So So the crux here is whatever the sender is trying to say. So here I'm trying to say, sender, if you are somebody who's trying to fun, and somebody else has to understand or take action, then it has to be understood in the way the other person understands it. Or if you are the receiver, then there are certain things at your end as well, which you can use so that the sender makes it clear so that both of you are on the same page. Now, where should we focus on? Again, as I said, communication skills is a pretty larger area, and it will be very difficult to kind of focus on just on everything actually. So I've just tried to look at what are some of the things that we come across in our day-to-day life. So conveying your message very clearly, because if you don't, then you leave that room for assumptions, and assumptions are not right in any communication, right? And make the other person heard and understood. So whatever you're trying to say, the other person needs to get it properly. Then use simple language. I have seen a lot of people use complicated language, and I'll give you an example from today morning. I was going through some article in LinkedIn. One of my friend has written it, and I opened it because the subject was pretty interesting. And I opened it, and after a couple of lines, I gave up because he was using some words for which I had to come out of that screen, go to another screen, or Google the actual meaning of what he's trying to say. So people don't have the time. So I think you need to use simple language. Then understand the emotions and intentions. Now, this is another important piece, because in our organization as well, when we try and train some people managers, we try and show them there are practical needs of a situation and there are personal needs. And more often, the personal needs are an outcome of the emotions or the intentions of the person. So in communication, if you pay attention to the emotions and intention of the person, then you will communicate better with them. And I think the literature that we had around communication so far needs to undergo some change, because in the COVID world, if you see, our communications are not face to face, and we won't be able to see the body language. Just imagine, even if you have your video open, only one person video will be shown, but you don't know how the other person is reacting to what is being said. But whereas if you are sitting in a room and the presentation is happening, with the body language, you can figure out if the person is interested or not, right? And listen actively to gain full meaning, the comprehension of the message that is being passed on. And if you don't listen, you will not get it. Just like how I said, if you get lost in any distraction right now when I'm speaking and you come back into the conversation, it will be a little difficult for you to connect the dots and see and get the full message. And it is just not information exchange. Now, here again, the other day I was talking to somebody I know, and the person was saying that, well, I have passed on the information. But I was like, but do you think that is the information the person wanted? Or what is it that the person is going to do with that information? So we have to be clear in what we are communicating. Maybe we are trying to go in every direction, but as I said, it's extremely difficult for anybody to tell you everything about communication. All right, so moving on, where do we apply the communication skills? We apply in different settings. And again, here I am taking examples or trying to show you about a workplace kind of a scenario, because there might be students on the call, but eventually you will work. Or for that matter, if you have that entrepreneurship skill and you want to build your own startup, there also you will be dealing with people. I mean, language has evolved primarily because we are social animals and we need to interact, we need to collaborate, we need to work with the rest of our ecosystem, and we need language. So this is important, and not just at if you are working for an organization, but even if you want to start your own business. So we will see some of it. Like the first is attract to get called. So your resume is nothing but a communication medium, right? Uh, though this is a completely different subject, I mean, I would need one full hour to just deep dive into why resume is so important. But being in the business side, I have realized when we get resumes, how much time we spend on the resume and which are the resumes which get selected to be called for. And these days you have application tracking systems which reads the keywords, and then based on that, your profile will be put into the queue to be called for an interview. So as you can see, I'm trying to put the communication in the entire life cycle of starting from getting called until you get hired and start leading people, where all communication is important. So the language that you use on your resume is also important. I mean, silly typos are something which will completely put off the interviewer or the recruiter to call you. And the font sizes to the color combinations that you have used to the alignment and all that stuff is very important. Then influence to get hired. Now, this is from a interview process. When you are sitting in an interview, then obviously you have to communicate a lot. There are a lot of questions that the person is asking, and I find it a little amusing when I go to any interview and let's say I have Ayan sitting in front of me, a candidate named Ayan, and I ask, okay, Ayan, tell me something about yourself. Then Ayan starts off saying that, hi, my name is Ayan. And I'm like, I addressed you with your first name. You don't have to tell me Ayan again, you know? And I have seen that not just with candidates, but with experienced people as well. I have seen that. Maybe that is not a showstopper, or that is not something which will kind of exclude you from getting hired. But I'm just telling you certain aspects of communication. So the second thing in interview is the one-word answers. So if I ask something, they just respond with a one-word answer. Whereas all I'm trying to understand is whether you fit into the job description, whether you have the skill set, whether you have the aspiration and all that stuff. And then there are some people who will just go on and on and on, and I have to interrupt and say that, all right, that's fine. Let's move on. You know, so the balance, how do you create that balance is important. Maybe you have a lot of questions, but we will allocate some time at the end. I'll just try and finish. If you want to make notes, you can make notes. And after this session, I will share a copy of it. And probably you will also get a copy of this presentation. Third is collaborate to work together. So just let's say you attracted the employer, you got the call, your interview is done, you are fantastic, and now you come on board. Obviously, even if you are an individual contributor, I mean, in organizations, either you work with a team or you work alone on certain things, but still you will have somebody to work with. I mean, you can't be working just alone, right? So we have to collaborate with people. And in order for you to collaborate, then the softer aspects come together. Like you have to listen to people. You have to convey your messages to people. There is a lot of exchange that is happening between people. And there are a lot of ego clashes. There are a lot of power dynamics. So there is so much that is going on in communication. So it's always better for you to understand some of the strategies. So usually in collaboration, what happens is you come across certain conflicts because you strongly believe in some part, but the other party is not ready to listen to you. So do you get aggressive in your communication, or do you get assertive in your communication? Now, do you react to certain situation, or do you respond to certain situation? You know, so collaboration is very important. Then inform the progress. So obviously there will be a lot of things that you will be doing. Now your manager or your leader would be interested to know, okay, what you have done. So on a weekly basis, I send a report to my chief human resource officer as to what I have been doing. And if I'm not clear in how I am putting that whole report, then she's not going to get what I'm trying to say, and there'll be a lot of back and forth, and it might lead to some irritation, right? So communication again is just not about speaking, but how are you putting that uh, report together? Even if it is a report or some external benchmarking that you have done, or something that you want to inform the party or as to where you are, or any support that you required and all that stuff, it needs to be properly drafted. Then there are a lot of opportunities for you to put forward your ideas for any improvement. Now, here I've just tried to give you an example. I don't know how many of you know about this very nice website called Grammarly. Though in your Word also it gives you suggestions for wherever you're trying to make some mistakes. Here, as you can see, Grammarly has given me like, okay, that's not the right way to do it. And when I do it in a different fashion, I don't get any red lines or any recommendations, but it just says green. That means it's okay to go. And in fact, day before yesterday, I received something from a junior person where the grammar was completely out. I mean, there were so many issues, and when I was reading it, uh, anybody else who was reading it would have found it a little odd, coming from a professional who's already working for a larger multinational organization. Okay, and so here I am not saying, okay, sing your talent to grow in terms of singing, but there will be opportunities for you to talk about what you think about our thought leadership, as some people might call it. So in a lot of meetings, maybe your leader will ask you, okay, so what do you think about it? So you need to be able to formulate your thoughts and put it in a language with the right emphasis on the words, or wherever you want to draw the attention, the intonation part, the pronunciation part. While I think most of us understand that English, though even we have gone to English medium schools, but there are different ways. Depending on the part of India that you come from, you will have that mother tongue influence, or sometimes the vernacular language will kind of be very visible in your communication. So just imagine you get an opportunity to kind of talk about something in front of leadership, and you are struggling. You're struggling to put your idea or thought into a language which they can relate and buy, then you just don't get an opportunity. So when you get that opportunity, just put it in the way that will help you to grow. Now, this is another important part, leading to inspire. So I'm sure I have seen some of you have 10 plus years of experience. You will be leading teams, and your team members are actually looking at you, and they are reading every message that you're passing on directly in who has a team under him or her is being watched, because for them, they would like to practice what you have done. And when I take sessions on managerial excellence, I keep hearing certain cliches, if I can use that word. And when I ask them, like, where did you learn this? And they always tell me that my manager used to do that. So to give you an example, there is a way to provide feedback. I mean, feedback mechanism works differently, and there is a process to be followed. But somebody who has not been exposed to this mechanism of providing feedback has only seen how his or her manager has been providing feedback. So that applies to you as well when you are in that lead position and people are reporting to you. How are you communicating with them? Are you asking questions? Are you probing and getting clarifications? Or are you assuming stuff? Or you're creating perceptions and you are giving orders, you are not empathizing with them, you don't take care, you don't care about their well-being and all of this is reflected in the way you communicate with them. So that is another opportunity where communication skill is very important. I think, yeah, I've been talking for the last 30 odd minutes, but I'll just summarize. As you can see here, I have put together this for college students, especially the engineering guys. And that is why I have used some of the streams that they are part of, the ECEs and EEEs and all that. So if I just sum up whatever we have just seen, I'm saying communicate with energy. Just imagine if I was sitting here and I was talking to you in a very low voice, then you would log off and you will not listen. And I used to work for General Electric, and we used to have the value that energy, then energize. So if you have the energy, you will energize others. So there has to be energy in your voice. That is one. Second thing is clarity. Because as I said, while all of us have a different way to pronounce and speak, but we would like to hear the other person in a very clear manner. And I think we have come a long way. I mean, especially for those of you who have been in industry for 10 long years, must have come across the British English, the European English, and the Australian English, and the US English, and all that, right? But they don't expect us to copy them and speak to anybody in their accent. I think having a natural and a neutral accent is well accepted anywhere. Empathy is another important part, because again, that gets reflected in your tone. When you are dealing with people, are you using an empathetic tone is important. And second is always keep it concise. Just like this session, if I would have ran this session for an hour, then I will lose you completely. Just like that, for whenever you communicate, just keep it concise and not that short, not too long, just about proportionately balanced. And keep it simple. I think in one of the slides we have seen no jargons. And wherever there are jargons that you have to use, especially in a written format, you just expand it in a bracket so that anybody who's reading it doesn't have to refer to some glossary or some other page or struggle within the organization. Because I'll give you, there was a director who was hired in our organization. She was new and she was coming up across a lot of acronyms, a lot of terms which are used in Capgemini. And every time she used to ping me like, I am on this call and these guys are talking about this. Can you please tell me what they are referring to? So just make a note of that, and when you communicate, avoid acronyms or jargons, which you think typically everybody understands, but not everybody. In a physical setting, eye contact was very important, but in the current context, I think people who are a little scared to come in front of public or have a face-to-face conversation are very easily, comfortably hiding behind the desk with shutter off on their video screen. But I would say to make it more personalized, wherever there is an opportunity, just open your video and be visible. Because the trust element is very important. And for centuries, we have been forming trust basis what we see. Beside hearing, we also can easily read micro expression. And if you pay attention to any children that you have at home, not even toddlers, the infants, just see, they always observe your face. They don't look at your arm, your shoulder, or anything. Their focus area is your face, because it is kind of hardwired in our brain that in order for us to trust and see who is in group and out group, who is a friend and who is a foe, we kind of read the facial expression and especially the micro expressions. And ensure that you encode the message properly. Ask these questions. Who am I communicating? Okay, what is it that they want? What language suits in this current context and all? Encode it properly so that they can decode it in the right way. And engage. This is another important part. In the current context, because of the medium that we are using, I'm unable to engage you into a conversation. But if it was our office setting, then we use certain aids, like there is a Slido, Mentimeter, some polls and stuff like that. And there is an engagement that happens. Practice active listening. Now, this I think you must have heard a number of times. Again, it's a completely broader area because you listen not just to respond, but you listen to understand and you listen to actually feel. And the deepest level is you listen to see the value system where this person is coming from. And also easy to navigate. Again, if it is a report or anything, just ensure that it is easy. When you prepare presentation, ensure that it is easy so that the person can go back and forth and reads it like a story and gets the message. And write complete stuff. Don't leave it to anything for assumption. Finish off. Try and put yourself in the other person and see, okay, if I'm reading this, how would I take it? What are some of the questions that can come into my mind? And obviously, when you write, it has to be easy to read. Again, ensure no typos or complex words. And last is make it meaningful, because people don't want to get information just for the sake of it. It has to be meaningful to them. And I see on LinkedIn also, I mean, recently I received one article from someone. And within 2 days, I received another article. This person probably has a flair for writing, but I was not ready to read the article by the same person immediately after 2 days. So there has to be a gap. So just like that, just few people say that there is nothing called over communication. But I would say that as long as that is meaningful, then it's fine. Easy to understand. Again, just like easy to read, they should be able to understand what you're trying to say. So I think I have spoken for almost 35 minutes. So I'll just stop it here and we can take some questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Sajjad. It was a very nice presentation and very well articulated also. Thanks for that again. So, yeah, do we have any questions? We can take up a few questions to Mr. Sajjad. You can unmute yourself and ask your question, or you
Yes, sir.
can ask your question in the chat box also.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, my question is, what is a content moderator?
Content moderator.
Yeah, modernization.
Okay, is that a role? Because from the word, I can understand that there is a content and somebody needs to moderate. But I don't know the role job description because I have not come across.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe
a
that
digital communication.
So again, as I said, for a digital customer experience, I'm just thinking aloud. Maybe in a digital customer experience, there is a content moderator. We used to have content writers. I heard about content writing, but I think now there is a new role that has come up of content moderator. But I don't have any experience in that area.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, thanks for this session. Sir, it was amazing listening to you. But I joined your session in between, sir, so I wasn't able to capture everything you said. So can I get this recording, sir?
I'm sure, yes. Parveez or Tausif.
Yes, it is. The session is being recorded. You will be, it will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, so you can get it from there.
That Millet YouTube channel, right?
Yes, tinyurl/mfiid. That is the same link which is there in the invite.
Okay, the link which has been shared in the group, right? That one.
Right.
Okay. So after seeing that video, if I have any questions, can I ask to Sajjad, sir? afterwards?
Yes, I mean, you can look up my LinkedIn profile, and
Okay.
I, I will be able to respond to any question you have, which is not covered in the recording.
Okay.
And
So
I see that Zubair has asked a question on the CV. So Zubair, definitely this is a very big pick, and I have a lecture on that as well, and I'll work with Parveez and Tausif and see if we can organize another session, because just like this PowerPoint presentation, I have a detailed lecture on the resume or the CV.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, somebody's asking a question.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, good morning, Sajjad bhai, and thanks for organizing this platform. I have joined this platform for the first time actually. So I have some questions like regarding voice clarity. How can we practice to improve our voice clarity so that other person can understand our voice? To talk from throat, not from nose, and to take first breath, then talk, and um, uh, uh, to make communication slow, so that our voice clarity quality needs to improve. So how can we practice? Can you please explain?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great question. And I think we can blame our educational system, because I think we got exposed to the words but we did not get exposed to the pronunciation part. So as you rightly said, now I'll just give you an example of when we say voice, right? We generally don't bite our lower lip and say voice. We say voice.
Yeah.
But if you look at English as a language, wherever there is a W, like for instance, world, that is where we kind of roll our lips and say world. We don't say world. So that is the difference that it makes to your pronunciation. So in order for anybody to improve the pronunciation, I think when I was building my career in this IT industry, probably that at that point in time, there were not too many options. But today you have a lot of options in the form of applications or online. Uh, Even if you search for any word in Google, then it will give you a little icon of a speaker. You press that and it will pronounce how exactly. And sometimes it gives you American way and a British way as well. So I think that is how one can practice. And there are some tips for speakers. So before coming to any session, speakers also have certain exercises. So when I come for any session, I do certain voice exercises, but I think that is only when you have to speak for a longer period of time. But for pronunciation, I think you can you can record your own voice, and then you can listen and see how it's sounding, where you are making mistakes or you're not pronouncing it properly. Go and search Google and see, and then repeat the same stuff over and over again, and probably you will get it. And I can tell you that just like singing, how people practice and get better over a period of time, the same goes for voice as well. You can practice, maybe it will take a year or two, but you will be far better than what you are if you feel there is a need for you to improve.
Yeah. So I got one great idea like recording and singing idea. So hope it will give me a good courage to practice for voice quality, so that a frontier person can understand my voice.
Absolutely.
And my another question is, how can we make our communication interesting? For example, suppose someone has a good knowledge, but his communication is not interesting, so the other persons will not enjoy his session. But the person has knowledge and he is making interesting communication, so the people will enjoy that session. So for example, I can tell you, in politician you can see a Rahul Gandhi speech. He's also a good politician, but he doesn't have interesting communication, so people sleep in his session. But in other politician like OEC etc., he makes some jokes, laugh,
so people enjoy that session. So
Yeah,
if
so I will
we
not
can,
try to
yeah,
politicize this
yeah,
session, but I can tell you that if you want to make it interesting, you have to
yeah,
talk in terms of what is the interest of the other person, right? And I think that is the only answer to make any conversation interesting, because I think you will appreciate that all of us like to talk.
yeah,
We want people to listen. But if you want people to listen, we can't be talking what we want to talk. We
yes,
should be talking as to what they want to listen.
yeah,
That's the only answer for making an interesting conversation.
yeah. So my main aim is it should be like in any educational session. In most of the colleges, what happens? The backbenchers left that subject. Why? Because the teachers doesn't have that quality education. Doesn't have that quality communication. So they're just teaching, but so backbenchers doesn't take interest in that sessions. So that if teacher makes interesting communication, so that even backbenchers do not used to get bumped, they will just used to sit in that session, because if teacher has interesting communication. So in that way, मिस मुझे इंग्लिश में तो इतना नहीं बोलने आ रहा है, but I'm trying.
I get your message, Faizan. Thank you so much. There are some more questions. I think
Sure.
Kami is asking, does grammar is really matter for good communication?
Yes.
So, Sami, it is like this. In a written format, I think, as I was showing Grammarly as an example, you go write something and put it on Grammarly, it will tell you where your preposition is out, where you're not using a conjunction properly, or if you're not using an article before an vowels and all that stuff, or spelling mistakes and all. That's easy to address because there is no urgency. You can type and see where you have to make corrections and paste it, and then you communicate like that. Over a period of time, you can see where is it that you are making a lot of mistakes. Is it past tense, present tense? What are the mistakes that you are making? And when that gives you a suggestion, over a period of time, it will automatically come to you. I'll give you an example. A lot of people say that I did not had, as an example, but actually it's I did not have. Every time you use did not, you put a have, the present. But with the past, people put past. So when you type that, Grammarly will immediately correct you and say it's not did not had, it is did not have. So when you see this kind of a pattern, then automatically maybe after 25th, 30th time, you will not make that mistake. The challenge is in terms of speaking, because this is a real time. Now, when I am talking to you, I am not reading from any paper. I'm processing everything in my mind, and I'm trying to recollect whatever knowledge I have, and I'm just putting it in front of you. And for this, it takes some time. Probably if you would have met me 10 years back, you would have not felt the same, probably the way you are feeling now. So it will take time. So I would say first start correcting your grammar in terms of your written stuff, learn, and then maybe when you are also saying it, it will get corrected automatically.
We have one question from Brother Irfan. He asks, could you please share some tips on body language improvement?
Okay. All right. So that's another bigger topic. So definitely body language is important because that reinforces what you're trying to say. Again, it has some secrets basis our evolution. So if you go back to our caveman days, when we used to live in jungles and the savannas and whatnot, we came across different tribes. Right? So we used to live in tribe, let's say, and then we expanded the geography, we moved because we were hunter-gatherers, and we came across another tribe. So when we came across another tribe, we wanted to know whether this tribe is going to harm us or are they going to become a bigger part of our tribe? So just imagine if the other tribe, when they came across and they started to kind of use their spears or whatever they had, and that was the body language, then you kind of get the message that, okay, they are kind of hostile and they don't want us to come closer to their territory, or they are not welcoming, right? So that is how we have processed, that is how we have figured out meanings of things that we got exposed to. So because of that, today as well, we would like to understand basis how the other person is communicating. So body language is extremely important, and it works in a lot of different settings. It's just not when somebody is presenting, but when somebody is presenting, what is your body language? And I mean, if you're sitting in a room and you are kind of relaxed and all, then your interest levels are pretty low. But if you are upright and you are sitting straight, then it says something else. If you are in an interview, if you are kind of leaning back, that shows a different attitude. If you are too much leaning forward, that shows a different attitude. So in a lot of settings, body language plays and passes on a message differently. So I don't know how to improve body language, but I would say observe the leaders and see how your reaction has been because of that person's body language. And then probably you can start using it. Again, it is going to take some time. I know, I mean, there are some great leaders who just simply lack body language. Even in a video, I mean, I'm telling you, I mean, just last week I attended a session where there were global leaders and they were on a video, but everybody's hands were hidden and they were just speaking. And that also kind of gives out a message that they were reading from somewhere. They were not thinking and they were not formulating their thoughts, but they were reading from somewhere. And when you read from somewhere, it's extremely difficult to use your body because your body language is in perfect alignment with your thought if it is coming from here. But if you're reading, then all other parts of your body just kind of relaxes because you are using that brain power only to concentrate so that you don't miss out on the word. You want to pronounce it properly. You want that comma. You want to take a pause at that comma or stop at a full stop and all. So I think just observe the leaders and you will know what is the right body language.
Right. So we have one question. I think it's a very general question. Brother Mehboob asks, he tells, I want to improve my body. I want to improve my communication skills. Could you please tell me what are the ways?
So as I said, Mehboob, communication skill is a broader aspect, and one can only improve the communication skill over a period of time. So I think right strategy for anybody, as some other brother was asking that, okay, I want to improve my pronunciation. Somebody said grammar is somewhere I think I need to improve on. So do your own assessment or ask some of your close friends or family members, or if you have mentors or coaches, anybody who will give you a very unbiased opinion about what they think about your communication skills, and break it down into, is it written? Is it spoken? Is it about ideas? Is it about pronunciation? What is it? And then start working on it. Okay, this 6 months, I'm going to focus only on that. Then the next 6 months, I'm going to focus on that. If you follow that, then yes. But if you want to kind of look at everything at once, that's not how we learn. That's not how our mind also works. And let me tell you, people have goals. All of us put certain goals very nicely. I mean, January is coming, everybody will start having a resolution, but 90% of them or 95% of them fail because they concentrate a lot on achieving the goal. But what happens in the process of from setting to achieving is what completely goes out of the window. And people who follow the process are the one who will become successful in meeting those goals. So I would say take it chunk by chunk, not at once completely.
Right. We have another question from Brother Junaid. He asks, in one interview, I was asked below questions, and I want to know what is the expected answer. The question was, as a manager, how will you handle the team?
All right. So the interviewer who asked you this question probably also might not have had a great experience at managing people, because this is a very vague question in itself. Because if I was the interviewee, then I would put the question back to the interviewer saying that, okay, when you say handle, can you give me an scenario? Is it as to if somebody is not working, how do I ensure that the person works? Or is it that somebody has not understood my instructions? Or is it that my team members are fighting with each other and I have to intervene and get the work done? Or is it that somebody is not motivated? So what is it that I do to motivate that person? What are you asking me? You know, so it's again a broader topic. It can't be, some of them might come and tell you that, well, just give the team what they want and that's the best way to handle a team. But I would say that the team will ask promotion. Everybody wants promotion. Will you be able to give promotion to everybody? You can't, right? So it's very difficult to answer that question. I would say if you get
Yeah, right.
ask a follow-up question and get to the specific of what they are looking for.
Meanwhile, I have one question, Mr. Sajjad, to you. During communication, basically two questions. I have seen it a lot of times, and I myself end up doing this sometimes, that we tend to break the communication by using some typical words, like we use the word like, or we use the word means. So we typically tend to break the communication. We don't have that continuity. One is, what impact does it have on the hearer? And two, what conscious efforts can we make to sort of reduce this?
So the cricketer Azharuddin comes to my mind when you said this question, because if you have heard Azhar speak, I think I don't know if he uses I think or like pretty often. I don't know if anybody has observed that. Nobody? Okay, no problem. But yes, so these are called non-value added words. Basically, there is no value for that word to be included in the speech. But still, we use it, and I really don't know what is the way to overcome it, but one has to make note of it. And I guess if they are struggling with formulating their thought, they will use that as a filler. Like, or I think. They use it as a filler so that they can process the another thought that needs to come. So I really don't know what is the strategy to overcome that part, but one has to just make note of it. And if they are self-aware, then I think that is the starting point. Some cases, some people are not even aware. So that is where I said, record something, don't read. I mean, if you read something and record, then you are not using your brain power to that extent. Just imagine, just say a story of your own life or whatever your experience and record it and play it back and see how do you sound. How many times did you use the word like in it?
Right. Yeah, I think that would be a good strategy. So yeah, we are running out of time. We'll be taking last two questions in the interest of time. One question from Brother Naeem and another question from Brother Semi. Naeem asks, please tell me in an interview, is eye contact mandatory? If mandatory, then tell me how long can I continue? Interesting question.
Well, Naeem, a wonderful question. And yes, I can understand the intimidation that one might feel to look into somebody's eyes. And I will tell you again from our psychological studies, and I'm telling you, not that I have experienced that, but I see some merit in it. Okay. So before I jump to the interview part, let me tell you why some of the people have fear of public speaking. When in a college or a school or a team or in office, when you have to talk to a bigger audience, the fear of public speaking will just give you shiver, right? That is primarily because everybody is looking at you. When you are a speaker, everybody is looking at you. And what happens at the back of our mind when everybody is looking at us is they suddenly become predators. Now, again, think when we were not living in a civilized society, when we were living in jungles, and some harmful creature was in front of you, you were eaten alive. This might sound very gross, but just imagine that predator is in front of you and you are being eaten alive. And so the predator's eyes are right on you and you are seeing, and somebody is eating you alive. Just imagine the fear that you will have in your mind. The same thing happens when you go for public speaking, because everybody will become like a predator and everybody is looking at you because you are being judged, you are being observed and all that stuff. But your mind thinks like, oh my God, these people are going to eat me alive. So that's a very psychological aspect of it. In an interview setting, I think now it's a blessing in the COVID world. You actually don't have to see in the eyes. All you have to do is the camera where the little circle is where I am seeing now, as if now you are feeling that I'm talking to you. You just have to do that. But just in case, if we go back to our older days of doing interview face to face, then the best spot for you to observe is right here. Not the eyes, but right in the middle here, just above where the nose end, you can see there. And once in a while, you can just kind of take your glance a little away there, but keep it there so that you don't get intimidated and the other person also doesn't get intimidated, and there is a perfect balance. Yep.
All right. Thank you. There was one question from brother Sam. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, Ahmed sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I have gone through that extension which you have told Grammarly. That is so helpful, sir, to everyone. And I have a question about that when I am going to give an interview or when I'm going to give a presentation. So observing myself, I'm getting so much stage fear, and I was prepared very well, but when I get the stage fear, when I'm talking in front of everyone, I lost some contents. So could you please let me know how to lose the fear in front of everyone while we are speaking to others?
Sure. So, Sami, I think, again, just like the CV, the resume is a full-blown lecture, the nervousness in an interview is another full-blown lecture. So I can tell you how our mind works, but now considering the limited time, giving a short answer might not help you, but I'll just try and cover it. What you're going through basically is a stress. So when you are using the word fear, it's actually not fear, but it is the stress. So the way we experience stress is our heartbeat goes up and our palms sweat and we breathe heavily, right? These are some of the things that happen when you have to speak, be it in an interview or when you have to speak to a larger audience. So that's because of stress. And there are certain techniques that can be used, but I think it would make sense for the organizers to have another session at a later point in time where I can tell you in detail how you can address that stress and overcome that fear or the nervousness of attending interviews. Will that help?
Thank you for the response. Mr. Sajjad, we have two more questions. So do you have time to take those questions?
Yeah.
Or we can...
Well, because I was prepared to take it from 12 p.m. and that's how I have planned my day. So don't worry about time. Yeah.
All right. So perfect. So we have one question from brother Muhammad Abdul Shukur. He asked how to effectively communicate on LinkedIn.
Right. Okay. So LinkedIn, the social media platform, and I guess given that a lot of people have a lot of time now in the COVID scenario, I'm sure the LinkedIn user base might have gone up. and I see a lot of posts coming on LinkedIn. So communication on LinkedIn is through what you are posting. Messages is just like any other messaging platform, be it a WhatsApp or a Facebook Messenger or LinkedIn messages. So that's a one-on-one, right? So that's a different part. The second is, what are you putting? Are you writing some articles, some blogs? I think on LinkedIn it's called articles, not blogs. So are you writing some articles, or are you putting some pictures, or are you sharing something that you have read somewhere which you feel will benefit others? And what are the things that you're liking? And I'll give you an example. Recently, I saw one of my friends. She was going on liking every topic related to the role of a man in the society. And when I was talking to her, I said, looks like this is very closer to your heart. And then she said, why do you think so? I said, because in the last 1 month or so, when I'm scrolling, I see that so-and-so has liked this particular post. Then she said, oh, I didn't know that that is how it comes out. I said, yeah, that is how, because you are giving data points to everybody to feel what you strongly believe in. Then she was like, okay. So likewise, what are you commenting? Because your contacts, your connections can read what you're commenting on. Your contacts and connections can see what are you frequently putting up. And let me tell you, unless you want to be a LinkedIn influencer, then you can go on and put things on LinkedIn on a daily basis. But I think it needs to be a balance. There needs to be a kind of a schedule, like once in a month you can do one article, and once in a week you can share something which is useful. But overdoing it, I don't know how long that will give you mileage.
Thank you. We have a question from Brother Vikas. I think he's a student. He asks the typical interview questions. In the interviews, people ask, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? So he wants to know, what is your answer for these questions?
All right, Vikas, yes, I know earlier it used to be 10 years, but now it has 5 years, and maybe going forward, people will start asking, where do you see it after 2 years? And it is very subjective, and it is very personal to each one of us, because if you ask me today, all right, where do you see yourself 5 years down the line, then I know where I want to see. So I think it is up to you, but what the interviewer is trying to understand from you is, are you somebody who is aspirational? One. Then second, are you somebody who is realistic? So, because let's say you are a 2-year-old professional in the industry, and somebody asks you a question, where do you want to see 5 years down the line? And you say that I want to be the CEO of a company, then that is an aspiration, but it is not realistic. Unless you tell them that I will start a company of my own and I'll become a CEO, that's a different part, right? So aspiration, then realistic part, and then clarity of thought. These are some of the things that the interviewer is trying to see. And let me tell you, some of them ask just for the sake of asking. As I said, never ever go to an interview thinking that the other person sitting on the other side is a master in taking interviews. Let me tell you, there are a lot of people out there who are doing that job, but unfortunately, they themselves don't have the clarity of why they are taking an interview. So take it with a pinch of salt. Don't be too serious about interviews, and answer it the way you see it appropriately as to what you want to do. I understand there might be some challenges like, okay, actually in my heart, I want to do an MBA from some good college, and I just want to gain some experience in the organization. Can I say that? Now, the flip side of that is it depends on the maturity level of the other person. So if you are interviewing with somebody who is at a senior position, they have seen through the whole experience, and they understand that, yes, all of us have aspirations, and nobody is married to an organization, and a 5-year time frame is good enough for somebody to contribute to the organization for the investment the company is doing on you. But a junior person who has not been exposed to the length and breadth of professional experience might not select you because they think that, oh, this person is anyways going to leave us, right? So it also depends on who the other person is. Very difficult to answer that question, right?
Right. We have a question from Brother Zakir. He asks how to increase confidence in communication.
All right. So confidence again is when you know the subject very well. So for instance, when we started question and answer, somebody said the content moderator. I mean, if the organizing committee asks me to take a session next week or a month after on, or to moderate content, then I'll be completely lost because I don't know anything about that. So if you have to become confident at anything, you need to know the ground. You need to have the experience. So I'll just give you an example. The other day I was having a very interesting conversation with a friend, and he was saying something on the wisdom part and was struggling to actually put forward his thought. So I told him that when you read something in a book, you're actually reading some data. I mean, if you just read like 1 or 2 lines, it's nothing but data. Then with that data, you kind of form some information. So that data is trying to tell you some information, right? So the base is data, then on top of it is what the information is. And the more information you have, you will come to a certain knowledge level. But knowledge itself is not important, but you need that wisdom. And that wisdom happens when you have worked at the length and breadth of a particular situation. And your confidence is something that doesn't shoot up overnight. It goes in a gradual fashion. So what is it that you want to be confident at? Do you want to be confident at writing a code if you are a programmer? Or if you are a project manager, do you want to be confident in ensuring that you plan it properly? Or if you are a speaker, then do you want to increase your confidence in ensuring that your flow is smooth, you don't struggle for words, you keep the audience engaged, you use the right intonation and all that stuff. So again, confident in which context is very important.
We have a question from Naeem. He asks, in an interview, is calling sir to the interviewer, will it help in achieving success in the interview?
All right. Okay, so Naeem, this has some attachment to the culture of the organization. So typically, if you look at, now again, I'm not journalizing, but because in my experience, I have worked for American multinationals and now French, but in between, I had a very small stint with an Indian pure player. So it has been seen that in some Indian pure players, probably sir is how you address somebody who is senior to you, but that doesn't guarantee that you will create a good impression. But majority of the time, what it has been accepted is for you to call them with their first name. But I understand if you are starting your career and you don't have a lot of experience, maybe automatically that sir part comes into picture because of the cultural background that we come from. I mean, in India, anybody who has some experience is looked at differently, right? Because of the guru system that we had, or the basically culture throughout India or this part of the world. But whereas when you go to the European or the Western world, they refer somebody with their first name. They don't attach sir. So it's okay. I would say there is no harm, but at the same time, you're not going to get any brownie points to use sir.
All right. So there's one question which tells he wants to know how to answer this question. How can you be an asset to the company? When this question is asked in the interviews, how do we aptly answer it?
Very good. Yes, I think the best way to answer that question is if you understood the job description first very well. Because there is a role for which you are getting interviewed for, and you have to fit into that role. So let's say again, taking the example of what we started, content moderator. You are applying for a content moderator role, and the interviewer is asking you, okay, how can you be an asset to the organization? And if you tell the answer that, okay, I can write so many codes in this much time frame and all, which has nothing to do with content moderating, then your chances are gone. So your answer has to be in perfect alignment to what is the expectation out of that role. So you have to give examples of what you have done in the past about content moderating. You have to tell them about a challenging situation and how did you overcome it. I'll give you an example. So I'm not an HR person. Okay, I just moved into HR team just a year back. But before that, I was in business, hardcore delivery and cloud infrastructure services. Okay. And when I moved to HR, my CHRO told me that, okay, we need to do some external benchmarking on this particular area. And I was like, I have no idea what happens in that space. But then I said, okay, I will do it. Sat through, looked up my LinkedIn contacts, through them, somebody else who is working in that area, reached out, explained them my challenges, what I need from them. In exchange, what is it that I can do from them? Ordered some books on that subject through Amazon, read through, looked up internal material if there was any, spoke to a lot of people and consolidated it and gave a nice picture, and she was happy with that. So if somebody asks me in my future interview, how can you be an asset to our organization? Then I'll say that, okay, there was an opportunity where I had no idea what to do, but because I took support and I navigated my ecosystem properly, I was able to fulfill it. And similarly, in this role as well, I can do that. That is where you create a positive impression that, okay, you are somebody who's a go-getter, you will work hard and you will deliver. Okay.
Right. We have a question from Faizan again. He asks, what is your view on first impression is the last impression?
All right. So, yeah, Faizan, basically, again, it has some relationship to how we have been. As I said, we judge, we are all judging machines. And the reason why we strongly say that first impression is the best impression or the last impression, I would not say last impression, because in my 19 years of experience, I have seen how that impression has changed over a period of time. But if you really want to give a best first impression, it always works because human beings perceive things differently. So taking support of the same example of when you came across something. So just again, imagine you are a caveman. You are happily sitting and enjoying one Sunday afternoon, and you start feeling hungry. You came across a fruit, a new fruit. Normally, there is a pattern that you eat, but because you explored the jungle and you came across a new fruit, then you wanted to trust whether this fruit is poisonous or this fruit is edible, right? Similarly, everything that you came across, you and I or our ancestors, whatever, have been trying to create that impression, and that has been with us throughout. But I would say in the whole process of creating a first impression, a best impression, don't try too hard. Because when you try too hard, it comes out like chances of looking like a fake part will be seen. Just be natural. Just understand what is it required in that context. If it is an interview, what are an expectation of an interviewee? Or if it is a team member, first time meeting a new manager, what are the expectations? So always think from the other person's point of view and you will get your answers.
All right. I think that is the end of the questions. We've had a very extensive question answer session. Okay, there's one more question from Brother Muhammad Abdul Subur. He asks, tell me about yourself. How should we answer this question?
Well, Subur, that is a most important question which will decide whether you will be selected or not. And I'm not telling you just without any data, but if I look at my entire history of my experience, corporate experience, I might have taken thousands of interviews. And generally, a less experienced interviewer will ask that question, tell me something about yourself. Or they can use something like, okay, walk me through your profile. Okay, tell me what is it that I should know about you and all that. So it has become more or less like what do you call, a tradition that any interview needs to start with that, but it should not be. But still, because we can't change everybody, 8 times out of 10, you will be asked that question. So here, you have to think a little creatively, I would say, because the interviewer is so used to hearing, okay, my name is Muhammad Abdul Subur, and I am from Hyderabad, and I am from this college and all that stuff. They can see everything in your resume. They don't want to know something which is already in the resume. And if you have experienced interviews, when they ask you that question, most often or not, their eyes are on your resume while you're speaking, right? And there is no fun hearing the same thing what is written there. So make it a little interesting. So I'll give you an example. There is this chap in Hyderabad who saw me in one of the weddings, and my cousin's friend, and he reached out and said, I have an interview with your company, Capgemini, and I wanted to speak to you. I said, yeah, sure, call me. Then he was just looking for some mentoring through me. And I asked him about his life and all that stuff. And he told me a very interesting thing. He said, I have a dream to join your company. I said, just don't say it because I work there and I can help you with understanding what our company is all about. He said, no. I am very serious about it. I said, why do you say that? He said, your office is in this location in Hyderabad. For some of you who are not from Hyderabad, it's in Gachibowli. And his aunt used to live in Gandipet, which is that is the route that you take. And he said, when I was growing up and I was in my intermediate, I always used to pass by and I never saw any other company logo or board, though they were. But I don't know, I always saw your company logo, Capgemini in blue, written there. And I don't know when in my mind I created this dream that I want to be a part of this company. I want to work for this company. So I told him that when you go for an interview, when this question comes, tell me something about yourself, start with this story. Don't directly jump into saying that, okay, my name is so-and-so and all. Start with this story and then see the impact. And he got through. He is going to join us once he finishes 4th year. And I am very confidently telling you, because of that, not make-up story, but a real story, he said, he must have created that first best impression with the interviewer, because he has shown that feeling to the interviewer that he's already a part of the Capgemini family. There was commitment in him, because of which it kind of drove him to this stage, and he will be loyal to the organization because of that for some amount of time. That is how the hidden messages that you will pass on in your communication when you do things a little differently and not a traditional way.
All right. I think we have a lot of thank you messages to Mr. Sajjad for a very, very insightful session. It was a very nice session. I think we don't just scroll through. We don't have any more questions. Yeah. A lot of thank you messages from all the audience. And from on behalf of the entire MFIID team, I would take this opportunity to thank Mr. Sajjad Ahmed for taking out his valuable time on a Sunday afternoon to spend very valuable 1.5 hours with us. answering on various aspects of communication, effective communication. Uh, we will look forward to hear again from you, Mr. Sajjad. We will plan out this, inshallah. And I also thank all the participants for very actively participating in the webinars. This was one of the very more sort of interactive webinar in the recent times. The topic was very interesting. We covered most of the we covered most of the aspects of communication. So overall, it was a very nice session, alhamdulillah. We look forward to see you again. So these sessions happen every week. Again, we will have this session next week also. And for any of you who wants to take a session, who wants to present about your domain, about your skills, you can get in touch with us. We can plan that out, inshallah. Again, thanks everyone. Have a nice Sunday evening, and be ready for the Monday week ahead. Thank you again. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. Bye. Happy weekend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.